Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Cover One Buffalo. Back at it, your host Aaron Quinn. I missed a couple weeks, but I'm back. They couldn't get rid of me. Here with my nephew Rob Quinn, as always. Oh, we got some audio feedback here. Sorry about that. As always, my nephew Rob Quinn, and joining us also we got Kyle Trimble from Banged Up Bills. What's going on tonight, guys?
Doing pretty well.
How about you, Rob?
Doing well. Just finally excited that training camp's starting. Don't have to do any more of these, predictions of what's going to happen. We finally get to see what's going on.
Absolutely, man. So, what did I miss the last couple of weeks, Rob? I know you filled in for me with Nate. What did I miss there?
We talked about the Le'Veon Bell contract situation, a little Zay Jones going into year two. What else? We went on. Talked about Kelvin Benjamin's contract.
I heard that. Yeah.
That was from the Brandon Cooks deal, talking about the 2014 draft class of receivers and how Benjamin fits in there. And that was a pretty good show. So
Awesome. And if you guys are like me and you missed that show, I was out on vacation, didn't get a chance to catch the show. You can always catch us over on iTunes. Look it up, Cover One Buffalo. You can catch us over on Google Play, anywhere where you find your podcast. That's where we're at. You can also catch the videos back on YouTube. Go there and join the conversation, leave a review, comment, all that good stuff. We need that stuff to keep going. Any reviews, positive comments, and things that helps us out. Definitely, as always, find us on all your social media platforms. You guys know how to use those and how to search for people, so we're pretty easy to find over there. Most importantly, though, don't forget to go over to cover1.net. Join us on the premium subscribers list. I was just in the Slack chat room talking to the guys. Rob and I have been in there all day chatting with those guys, so definitely get over there. Rob and I were talking about some really cool things we want to do for the premium subscribers as we rip here into the season. This is our preseason too, so we're getting all that stuff ready to get you a ton of content here for the season. So let's get right into it today because we got Kyle here. If you guys don't know who Kyle is, you're not following him on Twitter, you're doing yourself a disservice because he's been doing some really cool stuff. He's put out some really cool articles through Banged Up Bills, and it's bangedupbills.com. You can find him on social media under Banged Up Bills. Kyle, tell us a little about yourself and how you started Banged Up Bills.
Well, thanks, Aaron. I started Banged Up Bills as a result of just following everything on social media and realizing when I'm reading these articles that they're more general and people are always looking for that insider knowledge. Now, I'm not working with the Bills directly, but being a physical therapist, I know what these injuries consist of, how they're going to be injured in the first place, and generally what the recovery times are. So I was trying to insert myself into fill in that gap where people are getting those injuries reported and what the expectations are. So I started that, and I've had a lot of good success with that so far, getting readership up. And it's actually inspired by our friends over at the Rock Hard Report. I was on with them in 2016 and realized, hey, there's a need for this stuff. And so I realized if Drew and Chris can do it, hey, why can't I do it in some fashion? So I got to put a little plug out to Drew and Chris for kind of giving me a little inspiration for that. But my background as a physical therapist, I graduated from UofL here in Buffalo in 2013, worked in outpatient orthopedics, hospital setting, nursing home, and doing home care in the city of Buffalo. And really enjoy what I'm doing, and just look forward to working with Bills Mafia and giving them my knowledge to help you guys better understand what's going on with our team.
That's awesome, man. Obviously, we had some big news today, right before training camp, and we'll get right into it. So they had a bunch of big injuries last year, guys that ended their seasons. But one of the big ones that Rob actually broke the story on was Zay Jones' injury, but he had multiple injuries. So now also he had a surgery for a non-football related injury. I'm going to go ahead and assume that had something to do with what happened over the offseason with Zay. That's just an assumption. We don't know exactly what the injury is from. Bills have been pretty hush on the injury and the surgery overall. But it shows up as the non-football injury list. Do you know anything about this injury with Zay or any of his injuries even from last year? What do you got on Zay for us going into year two?
So we know that Zay had an issue with his shoulder. This dates back to college. I couldn't find whether it was the same shoulder or other shoulder, but he had surgeries on both times. I'm going to assume it's the same shoulder because once you tear your labrum, you're more likely to tear it again, just with the nature of it there. To give a brief overview, the labrum acts as almost like a golf tee in regards to has that slight divot in there. It helps deepen the socket so the head of the humerus, that ball portion, can stay in there a lot easier. Otherwise, you're dealing with this little bit of surface, but as soon as you deepen it, you're allowed to move around more. So he tore it, and that's mostly the edge there. We don't know which part of the edge it was, but he had surgery back in January. Based on timelines for the labral repairs, he's good to go now. It's usually about 6 months. Considering he's an NFL player, it's probably taking a little bit longer. And then also, in addition, he had that knee surgery, which is why he's on the non-football injury list. So we don't know what caused this injury. I had suspected that it came from the Jets game when he had that what looked to be a gruesome injury where he hyperextended it. But since it's not a football injury, it could have been from something else. Could have been from that meltdown in the hotel that we all know about, or it could have been just something hey, is popping up here.
Get something cleaned up, sure.
That's what I was thinking. It didn't seem to anything serious. The reason why I think he had it in late May was because he would have been cleared to use crutches for his shoulder by that time, and he might be in limited weight bearing. So I think that's why the timeline matches up like that. And then he's probably healthy from a standpoint of them cleaning out what was going on, but it might just be limited that he's just not up to speed with conditioning, strength, and just make sure he's ready to go so he doesn't have any setbacks with pain or swelling once he hits training camp. So this allows them to go use the facilities but not get in the practice field and release him when he's good to go.
So Bills fans shouldn't have too much concern with that news right now. We'll probably see Zay this month at some point.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, he might sit out at worst the first game just a precaution, but I can see him getting in the practices. And, I can't see any issues long term with this stuff. The biggest concern I have is the shoulder, since he's had now 2 injuries with this, but his knee doesn't bother me. And the shoulder, I think once that's all taken care of, he should actually be able to catch a ball.
Yeah, that's what his father was telling me about the original surgery, is that he pretty much played through it the entire year. The exact quote was, "How would you feel if you're sitting around, you go to grab a glass of water and your arm falls out of the socket?" Now, I don't know if that's exactly what happens medically, but he said he played through it for most of the year. So
if you tear it enough times, it can pop out randomly, but it's certainly, with more serious movements, it can certainly pop out a lot easier as a result.
Yeah, so now moving on to Travaris Cadet, we saw him suffer that awful leg injury against the Patriots.
Gruesome.
Nasty.
Christmas. So what do you think his prospects are right now? Really with how bad it was coupled with his age, and really, do you think he has a chance to make an impact with that?
Well, I think his biggest thing is going to be more just his talent alone. I mean, I was looking up and I had considered, he might not be ready, but I was looking through his Twitter today before we came on, and I saw a video of him running and doing well in the training facility. And then I found a video from late April, and he was cutting, running full speed, everything else on the sand. It looked like he hadn't done anything. So I know that's part of the rehab. You want to get back to doing those uneven surfaces, cutting, and just getting back to the normal motions you're expected to. From a mobility standpoint, I don't see him having any restrictions. It's just going to be whether he can bust through and get the other running backs ahead of him and catch a spot, though. But considering he did as well as he did in a backup role, I could see the Bills holding on to him just because he has experience with the team, and I don't see anything injury-wise that prevent him from contributing fully this year.
That's awesome, because I thought he was doing a really nice job in that role. I don't think people knew what to expect out of him when they signed him, and then he starts to show a little something, and then boom, kind of goes down. Another guy I'm really interested to get your opinion on here is Kelvin Benjamin, right? So has that injury in the I believe it was the Chargers game. It was like the one nice throw Peterman makes.
The only throw.
But then he just kind of struggled through it, and we've had some leg injuries in the past with him. Is this going to be a concern moving forward in a contract year for Benjamin? I mean, it's a big year for him. Is he going to come out and be healthy?
I mean, once again, with all these injuries, we're not ever 100% sure, but considering it was a meniscus and he was able to play through it, that told me that the meniscus wasn't completely torn when they had to go back and sew it together, but a piece had kind of frayed off. And that does happen with meniscus tears in younger people. You'll see it more common in older people, and those kind of the precursors to knee replacements. But Kelvin Benjamin probably need one down the line because of the beating they put in their bodies. However, with his injury, he got cleaned out. He was back running around. He was doing pretty good in off-season activities. So for the meniscus itself, he shouldn't have any problems. With swelling, range of motion, things like that. There. Thinking of the other injuries he did have the ACL tear back in, I believe it was 2015. There always is a chance to tear the other side or re-tear that same side, but he's been a few years out, and rates are usually a lot lower. I'm trying to think of other issues with Benjamin, but he just seems to be that's a pretty small injury to have, and the fact he's able to play through it. We are seeing people that allow that we try to work through it, but considering the NFL, they're trying to take care of the problem then and now, not trying to conservatively manage it. So he shouldn't have any problems. If he does, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, I thought it was impressive that he was able to fight through that and really play the rest of the season with an injury like that to the knee.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something that Brandon Beane saw in him, that type of work ethic to fight through it. But Charles Clay is obviously the big one that a lot of people are going to want to know about. He's had that groin injury for pretty much what seems forever. And what exactly can you tell us about that? He had a torn meniscus as well. So he's got a mess of injuries down in his legs, and it's pretty much a concern of everybody, really.
Yeah, the groin injury, those can be tough because sometimes those can linger just like the hamstrings, which we'll get to in a little bit here. But that's just going to take proper rest and just make sure you're stretching it out and just make sure that try not to play through any strains or anything that's going to say, well, that could develop into something later on. So just a lot of preventative medicine with the groin. Excuse me. As for the knee, he had the same thing as Kelvin Benjamin with the shaving out the meniscus. He'll have problems later on, but this upcoming season, he'll be good to go. He's able to come back and still contribute. He also tore his MCL, which is that ligament on the inside portion of the knee there. That ligament's multi-layered, so it's going to be, it can tear, but it's not going to usually totally tear. Some cases it can, but in his case, it didn't seem like it. So I'm sure he's going to have a knee brace on. I saw him at the Bills practice last year on the New Era field. He wears the compression neoprene sleeves. I'm sure that helps out that swelling in his knee. Rob, I believe you had said too last season that he had to get his knee drained often. I'm willing to bet he had some type of chronic issue in there, like a bursa sac. Now, bursa sacs are fluid-filled sacs that provide lubrication to the joint there. And if you take a direct hit to that knee, or you kind of get things just overworked in there, sometimes those can get inflamed, and then you get that swelling in there. It can affect function and with the swelling, but more or less it's going to cause problems and limit, and only get worse if you continue to re-injure it. So that's where I think the draining comes from. But I had read that he's trying to change his diet to get more anti-inflammatory properties into his diet, which should help restrict some of those chronic issues. But I think his time with the Bills is going to be ending within the next probably year or two. It's just how much more can we get out of him before he's put on the trash heap.
Right.
Yeah,
a diet change is going to make a drastic impact on a chronic injury like that. So
it might. I mean, I know that there's more stuff like that we don't know about that stuff. It just there's something to it. We don't quite know everything with it, but I think we're going to be years away from really figuring out how diet affects those injuries. It plays a part into it, but it's not going to be change of diet, prevent an injury. It's not there yet.
Right, yeah, you can bring inflammation down a little bit, but a degenerative type of knee injury is going to be tough. So I'm guessing, I guess Bills fans can expect him to be, on that Wednesday practice, held out of practice all throughout the year. Same type of thing we've had over the last 2 years, just to expect more of the same with him.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, looking at his last 3 years, and in fact, his entire career, he's appeared in, 2015 was his lowest amount of games, and then 2017 as well, where he's only appeared in 13 games. So he's been pretty durable. It just seems like he's always banged up for whatever reason, dealing with these little nagging injuries. I don't know if he's going to get rid of them all totally, considering the position he plays, but he should be available, just how effective he'll be when he's available.
Absolutely. And so we got another knee injury here, a guy that the Bills brought in free agency somebody that I think we're all expecting a lot out of this year on the defensive line, but we haven't seen him yet throughout the voluntary. He's been in that red jersey, kind of performing, but not actually asked to do a whole lot. Trent Murphy had the ACL tear early last year, so he's had plenty of time to recover. Were you shocked to see that he wasn't doing anything in the voluntary portion, and should we expect to see him full go coming in here to training camp this week?
Not surprising since he wasn't. Not surprising that he wasn't doing anything in voluntary OTAs because that would have been, I believe, 9 months out at that point. At 9 months for a total ACL reconstruction, you're just finally getting cleared to begin sports-related activities. That's where we saw people like Adrian Peterson coming back full bore. Well, Adrian Peterson's a freak. I mean, he's the exception, not the rule. So Murphy could have been doing running, lifting, things like that, but he wasn't ready for full football activities. They found that your chances to re-tear decrease with each month you're held out after 9 months. So he was just right at that point where you say, okay, let's start trying to really reintegrate you there. As for the ACL, I believe he had tore it in the preseason, like late in the preseason with the Redskins. So I think by the time training camp gets around, he'll be good to go. I did read somewhere that he's squatting like 400 pounds. So we're knowing that the ACL is able to hold up. I mean, it's going more of a flexion extension mechanism, not that rotation that we see with the ACL tears. But you're squatting 400 pounds. That means your muscles are able to give extra support around the knee joint. Unfortunately, despite all of those positives with him getting back, he still has 20 to 30% risk to re-tear just due to the nature of the ACL, and you'll see that in the opposite knee. If he does re-tear the same knee, it's going to be about 6% to re-tear the graft, but these guys are in the NFL. They're getting the best care possible with the best surgeons, so I don't think he'll re-tear, but there's always that chance, which scares me. But I think he'll be ready to go, no limitations once training camp breaks tomorrow.
All right. Well, Vontae Davis. Now, this is a name that's going to be pretty important this year. Obviously, EJ Gaines is gone. So Vontae's expected to line up opposite Tre'Davious White, be one of the top secondaries in the NFL, really. But he's dealt with some groin injuries throughout his career, and he was really released from the Colts because of that. What can he do to really kind of mitigate the time that he misses, or even just treat that so he's able to stay on the field?
Well, he had surgery, and according to the research, though, it's limited because you're dealing with NFL players, so it's not like you can just go grab random people and compare surgery versus non-surgery interventions. But they found that I think it was like 15 NFL players that had the type of injury he had, which is sports hernia. 90% of them came back to play in the NFL. Now, how effective they were, I'm sure it depends on talent and other things, but they were able to come back and play. So that tells me that he's going to be healthy come into the season. He really hasn't had any issues regarding that. I don't think he's been held out of OTAs. He hasn't really been limited. And I know the Colts, there are some discrepancies whether he shot for surgery or not, but he elected to, which I think was the right idea. As for prevention, he's just going to have to really be like, we were talking about others with Charles Clay being preventive, make sure he's stretching out, make sure he catches those early pains and, make sure he doesn't overdo it and works himself up to it. So as he's a veteran, I've noticed a lot with the veteran players, they're just really focused on taking care of their bodies. I mean, that's why you see Lorenzo Alexander still in the league, because he's doing everything he can to keep himself healthy. I think some of the younger guys, hey, I'm in the league, I'm going to do this or that, but don't really understand what they have to do to take care of it. But I don't see Davis having any issues either. There's always that risk, just like everybody else, but I can see him doing a lot better since he knows how the game operates, being, I think, 9 years in the league now?
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be a big one to keep an eye on, because fans are expecting a lot out of him after Gaines is gone and Davis comes in. A guy we didn't have here on the list, but I know that Rob is dying to find out about because it's his number one main man. Matt Milano was held out of all the stuff this offseason. It's kind of that lingering soft tissue injury. And then they sign Keenan Robinson, kind of a guy to come in as a backup. But a lot of fans speculated that maybe it's because Milano's not ready and they want to get this guy in there just in case, an athletic guy. When you're heading into training camp like this, a soft tissue injury like that, what should we expect with Milano and then bringing him back in to the fold?
They're going to have to just keep watching them, and they're just going to have to take them along slowly. Hamstrings, they can heal up. You can feel great, and you're out there doing your thing. All of a sudden, it goes again. It's not like it's a fragile piece of tissue, but the idea is you're just trying to go top-end speed, and where those injuries usually occur is when you're taking that stride forward, and as your heel's hitting, or in the case you're sprinting, that forefoot midfoot, like where your toes and then part of your foot are hitting, that is, trying to absorb so much energy and then push you forward. Sometimes that hamstring, as it's coming back through, just can't handle it, and that's where you get that hamstring strain out there. So he's going to have to just kind of not necessarily hold back on that, but he's going to just really work on making sure he ramps things up instead of going 0 to 100 right away. And then he's also going to have to work on eccentric exercises. I'm sure training staff have been really hammering that with him. But you ever see those Nordic hamstring things where somebody's holding the ankles, they're going all the way down and then coming back up? So that's eccentric, where we're trying to slowly lengthen the muscles. That's going to be the most effective type to strengthen up the muscle. It's also the most demanding of the muscle, depending wherever it is in the body. But he's going to have to just really just also listen to his body and just realize he can't go full bore right away and get up to it. He might still have some of the hamstring injuries, but we're hoping that they're going to be mild instead of, huge where he misses significant time. I don't think he missed too much time last year, but there's always that risk that he could really continue to cause further damage.
Gotcha. Is that going to be okay with you, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, got to use him in there just like they did last year. We saw what happened.
Yeah,
it just has to be smart.
He's a pro's pro. If he's got to miss some time, I'm not super worried about it.
Yeah, I'd rather miss time in the preseason and get healthy rather than try and rush through it.
That's what I'm saying. So kind of along that same vein here, something I'm always interested to find out, because you see a lot of injuries happen in the preseason and ones that really impact the entire season for a team, whether it's a guy like Stevie Johnson years ago that just couldn't get past hamstring injuries or groin injuries or things like that just linger throughout the year. Obviously trainers can't do a whole lot about ACL tears. That stuff happens every training camp. But what are these guys as trainers keeping an eye on during camp? Biggest concerns for player health and safety, because you want to get them out on the field practicing, but you really want to watch how much they're doing and what they're doing and prevent injuries. What are they looking at? What are the concerns?
Well, I know I can't say exactly what they're looking for, because I haven't worked with the Bills or NFL team. However, if I'm working with athletes in general coming back from recovery, I'm looking at how they're moving on the field. I'm looking at different plays and see if anybody's kind of come up limping. I'm looking at seeing how the body parts are flying around. Because for example, going back to the Zay Jones example, that knee injury when he tripped over with his buster screen, that looked nasty. He came off for 2 plays. I think it came right back on, continued playing. So sometimes it looks worse than it really is. But if I'm a PT or trainer, whatever, I'm out there, I'm looking at how people are responding to each play, making sure that they're not going to be, kind of trying to tough through it there. Training camp's the opportunity to learn and get into football shape, but it's not the opportunity to try to tough it out. You'll see that with guys trying to make the roster. I don't blame them, but I'm just making sure that if there's something that seems funny or if the ground seems, off with regarding uneasiness, like if they're working on turf, for example, you want to make sure that turf is secure to the ground so they're not running the risk of getting their foot caught up in the turf, leading to an ACL injury, or make sure guys are just kind of being more proactive about their injuries and bringing it up rather than, reactive when they've already torn. So you can't prevent everything, but try to just keep your eyes peeled.
Make sure they keep the mats out of the area. We don't want anyone slipping on mats this year.
Are we saying that AJ McCarron's going to be the next Kevin Cobb there? I mean, we hope not. But.
Oh, man. Real quick here, one last question before I let you go, because it was brought up in our chat here. Khalid, who's an avid follower and always, we appreciate him joining us, mentions, after we were talking about Davis, he says, but Davis has been injury prone. As somebody that works with injuries and things like that, this is a conversation and a debate that I've had a lot about guys. Do you believe in people being injury prone?
Yeah. That's a good question.
Not to throw you on the spot,
Yeah,
but I'm
no,
gonna.
but there's a lot more to it than a yes or no.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to how the people take care of their body. I mean, one could say I was injury prone. I had just a quick overview of my stuff. I tore my ACL, I blew up my knee, I dislocated my shoulder. That's why I became a PT. So you could say I was injury prone. I don't know that I was taking care of my body the best I could in high school. Though then again, in high school, I'm just going along with the flow and trying to figure things out. Going back to the NFL guys, though, yeah, he's had some injury histories. It just depends on what type of injuries there are. Are we dealing with soft tissue injuries where you have to be more proactive and being mindful of health, or are there freak things like you're breaking your bone, you're getting concussion after concussion? It just depends on the type of injuries. With Vontae Davis, with his sports hernia injury, I think that he's good to go with that. Overall injury prone, I don't think it's a thing. I think it just unfortunate happenstance. Just sometimes it happens with more people, and then you also factor in genetics and stuff. But overall, I think it's how the person responds to things rather than, well, you just are injury prone because that's just who he is. I think it's how you respond to those injuries, whether that makes you injury prone.
Awesome. Hey, Rob, you got any other questions for Kyle here before we cut him loose for the night?
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered all of it, but like you said, football is such a contact sport. I mean, I don't think injuries are really avoidable. And I think calling someone injury prone is almost
It's an insult.
Kind of an insult, yeah. To them playing such a physical game.
Yeah.
I agree. We should have you on for it because it sounds like you could talk about that a little bit more.
Dude, I could talk for hours. I mean, I do this for living every day, but and I go into great detail in my articles, and we'll get to that in a second. But I got two final thoughts here. I got I think Vontae Davis is an upgrade from EJ Gaines. I think he'll be more available as he's a little bit older, and I think he's just upgraded as a talent. And then my final thought with the overall injuries, I've been doing more reading because that's what I do as a PT, and I was finding that concussions can lead to a higher rate for the further injuries in lower extremities. You don't see as many upper extremities because they might be throwing for the quarterback or catching the wide receiver, but we're always running, cutting, things like that there. But with a concussion, if they're kind of wonky, they're not knowing quite what's going on, their reaction time can be decreased, which could lead to them being confused and making that cut a split second late, which could lead to them taking a harder turn than they want to, leading to ACL, Achilles, etc. So we're going to see more and more of that with how concussion management, which we've already seen enough with the NFL, how that affects with those lower extremity injuries. So if we can prevent the concussion, we might prevent those high rates of ACL tears we've seen in preseason.
You couldn't see it on the video, but my mind just was blown by that because I had actually never even considered. It makes perfect sense, but I never considered how that could impact other injuries, because the game is so fast that any slip up of not being sharp enough or whatever it is can impact and cause injuries. So is that type of stuff, man. That's why I reached out to you today. I want to have you on, and I'm hoping that you come on all throughout the season here and keep us updated because we know it's going to happen. We know there's, it's a battle of attrition every year. So we know stuff's going to happen. So with that, where can Bills fans find you so that when this type of stuff happens, they can know who to @ on Twitter to find out and get your articles?
I'm at Banged Up Bills on Twitter, and I also have a personal account, Kyle Trimble 88. So you can go to either one of them. Really just trying to build my social media presence through Banged Up Bills. So I'm going to answer both of those accounts, whichever one you find first. Most of the Bills injuries, I usually do live tweeting during the games. I work with Pro Football Doc, Dr. David Chow. So I'm an injury spotter for him. So I'm always live tweeting the games in case there's an injury, and I tweet him directly. So if you want to find out what's going on, once I review the injury, I should be able to give some ideas on what my thoughts are. So follow me there. And then I'm also at bangedupbills.com. I'm always trying to pump out content. What usually go on during the week, during the off season, I've been just trying to do positional reviews. I'm trying to get together what those injuries mean for long term. And I'm always just trying to pump out stuff, and I hope people read because I'm putting it out there because I like reading about it. I like learning about it. I want my fellow fans to know more about what's going on with our beloved Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think it's great content for Bills fans. I think it's a new, Cover One, we specialize in, the film breakdown and breaking down the X's and O's. And I think that during the season here with the injury thing is just as important for fans to know, what's going on, what to expect from the team, and maybe how that correlates to what possible moves are being made, roster moves and things like that. So I think it's just another piece of an arsenal for an educated fan. So I know I appreciate what you're doing. I'm sure the fans do too.
Absolutely.
So we'll have you back on. Go enjoy the rest of your night, man. And Rob and I are going to sit here and argue the rest of the night about some stuff.
All right. Sounds good. I really appreciate you guys having me on. I look forward to coming back on. And, if I don't come back on, that means the Bills aren't getting injured, but I expect to be back on at some point. So
yeah, you'll be here. I'm almost sure of it.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right. Bye-bye.
Rob, that was a great conversation, man, having Kyle on. What did you take away from all that?
The concussion with the lower body injuries is insane. I mean, you don't really try to think of that with the game going on, but I mean, I've been following him for a while, and it's really interesting stuff to track because I mean, there's a million blogs out there where you could find out what players are saying and what they're doing, but there's not a lot like doctors like him who are really going to inform you, okay, this is what's happening with this player, this is the procedure, and this is how long he's going to be out. So he's really educating a lot of fans on their team. So,
yeah, I think that stuff's great, and I think that's come along here in the last couple of years of even the in-game stuff where a guy gets hurt and you reach out to a guy like him and try to find out what it is because we all want to know immediately. So look forward to having him on all throughout the year. But let's get right into it, man, because guys were reporting today. Obviously, Josh Allen signs. We don't really need to talk about that because we knew that was coming along. But all the rookies are signed up prior to camp. Some teams don't have that, so we're good there. Let's get right into it, man. Players with the highest expectations for you, Rob Quinn. Who are the guys that you have the highest expectations on going into this training camp?
I think number one is going to be Tremaine Edmonds. He's a linebacker. The Bills were desperate for linebackers going in the offseason. Edmonds was hyped as he was being compared to the next Brian Urlacher due to his height and athletic ability and versatility. He was just anyone who spoke of him during the offseason, if you remember, was just starstruck. Then you go to minicamp, OTAs, Tre'Davious White is saying he's the best, but Tre'Davious, he's going to say that about everybody. But
sure.
So Alexander was saying that he would be shocked if he's not an all-pro within 2 seasons, and he'd be 21, 22 years old by then.
Unbelievable. So, yeah.
I mean, just to have the weight and those expectations on your shoulders, I think Tremaine's going to have to really fight through a lot of distractions and keep focused if he wants to have that productive rookie year that we all think that he will. And it's love.
Yeah, and another guy that came out and had high praise was defensive coordinator Leslie Frazier. Comes out and says, outside of Trey White, who that's a big bar to put up for a rookie. He said, he came in with that same type of being able to understand the playbook and implement the stuff out on the field. So that's high praise there. So you add all that together, like you said, with the first round pick, that creates a really high expectation. Everything we've heard, though, I feel good about him being able to kind of live up to those expectations as far as, even though he's a young guy, everybody talks about his maturity, raised right, all those things, keeps his head in the game, not interested in getting online and doing the social media stuff. He's just a football player. I think maybe the one thing that'll buffer him with the expectations is that he was the second of the first round picks. Obviously, a lot of the eyes are going to be on Josh Allen, but none of us as Bills fans are expecting Josh Allen to come in, even though the TV stations are going to be talking about him. So Tremaine might be able to slide in the background a little bit and just make plays, but I do think the expectations are high. I think he needs to come in and be the immediate starter in the most important position on the defense and just, not make a ton of mistakes. And that doesn't get any higher than that except for, QB, and we're not expecting much out of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, because Edmonds is getting so much national praise and Allen is essentially the opposite, where people are going to be watching him under a microscope to make a mistake. So that's going to be something that'll be very interesting, I'm sure, on the Twitterverse in preseason and as the regular season goes on.
Yeah, no doubt. A guy that I'm looking to and I'm putting high expectations on is a guy we talked about just now in the injury part. Vontae Davis, a guy that, I'm okay with the signing. I wasn't as high as a lot of fans were on him. I know that he's had some history of success in this league, but we talked about those injuries. It's been a while since we've seen him play at that level of success. 30 years old. I know he's saying all the right things. He's really excited to get back out there and prove everybody that he's still got it. But I mean, he's filling some big shoes from last year in a defensive secondary that was probably the best unit on the entire team. It's a big fit. And if he slides off, man, that can really hurt this